Every March, the environment undergoes a rapid shift in temperature and light availability. Human physiology is forced to adapt to this change, recalibrating our internal clocks to match a suddenly longer, brighter day. This graph tracks a specific phenomenon known as the daylight saving time dip. When we lose that single hour of sleep, it severs the alignment between our biological circadian rhythm and the external clock, resulting in a sudden drop in daily energy and mood. As that misalignment persists, sleep debt accumulates. The brain struggles to initiate sleep at the new, earlier time, and morning alertness drops, creating a temporary state of mood dysregulation. When you hit this spring slump, you have to figure out exactly what is causing the fatigue. There is a distinct difference between a healthy body struggling to adjust to a new time zone and a deeper, repeating psychological pattern that simply feels heavier because the seasons are changing. To isolate the root cause, we can apply 8 evidence-based interventions drawn from chronobiology and behavioral science to stabilize your physical baseline. If you execute these steps and recover your energy, the problem was purely biological. But if you optimize your sleep, light exposure, and movement, and still feel profoundly stuck, that gives you a clear diagnosis and points exactly to the next step you need to take. The biological baseline relies entirely on the primary environmental cue for human physiology, light. Step 1 is morning light anchoring. This requires getting 20 to 30 minutes of direct outdoor sunlight within 30 minutes of waking up. Hitting the eyes with bright natural light early in the day advances your circadian phase. It signals the brain to halt melatonin production, which clears morning grogginess and stabilizes your drive to sleep later that night. This chart illustrates the efficacy of our second step, clinical bright light therapy. Using a 10,000 lux lamp for 20 to 30 minutes daily produces a highly significant standardized effect size of 0.84 in reducing symptoms of seasonal and non-seasonal depression. A standardized effect size is a statistical metric that measures the magnitude of a treatment's impact, where anything above 0.8 is considered a large, clinically meaningful result. This intervention requires purchasing a medical-grade device and can cause headaches or eye strain. Crucially, it carries strict contraindications for individuals with unmanaged bipolar disorder, as intense light therapy can trigger manic episodes. Step 3 is the DST buffer. In the 4 days leading up to the springtime change, you shift your bedtime and wake time 15 minutes earlier each day. Spreading the lost hour over 4 days prevents the severe fatigue of a sudden circadian shock. The trade-off is that it requires proactive planning and forces you to cut late-night social schedules short during that transition week. By actively managing your light exposure and the timing of your sleep, you establish the absolute physical rhythm required before any other physical or mental recovery can take place. Once the timing of your internal clock is anchored, the next requirements are active physical exertion and specific environmental exposure. Step 4 is endocannabinoid triggering exercise. This means logging between 150 to 300 minutes per week of moderate aerobic output, like brisk walking, jogging, or cycling. This visualization shows the biochemical response to that exertion. Sustained aerobic output increases circulating levels of N-arachidonyl ethanolamine and 2-arachidonyl glycerol, or AEA and 2-AG. These endocannabinoids bind to brain receptors, reducing anxiety and depression. The trade-off is a strict delay in gratification. Baseline energy improves in week 1, but clinical mood shifts require up to 6 weeks of consistent exertion. Step 5 is green space exposure. This requires taking at least 30 minutes of that weekly movement and performing it specifically in natural, tree-lined environments, rather than indoors or on city streets. Engaging with natural environments activates established stress recovery pathways in the nervous system, rapidly reducing subjective fatigue and restoring your capacity for focused attention. Relying on outdoor training means you are dependent on the weather. In the spring, high pollen counts can trigger allergic rhinitis, which can impair your breathing and actively disrupt your sleep quality if not managed. When you combine consistent aerobic exertion with natural environments, you generate a dual biochemical and psychological stress reduction benefit that a strictly indoor routine cannot match. With daytime activity established, we have to look at the behavioral protocols that govern your nighttime recovery and your forward momentum. Step 6 is sleep consolidation. This is a core element of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, a structured program that helps you identify and replace thoughts and behaviors that cause or worsen sleep problems. Sleep consolidation requires you to maintain a strict, fixed wake time every single day, regardless of how poorly you slept the night before. This chart illustrates the mechanics of consolidation. By refusing to sleep in, you force your body to build a high level of homeostatic sleep pressure throughout the day. Over time, this intense biological drive to sleep overrides chronic delays in falling asleep at night. The cost is steep. You endure intense daytime sleepiness for the first 1 to 2 weeks before your brain adapts and consolidates rest. Step 7 is behavioral activation. You must schedule and execute one mastery task, like cleaning a room or paying bills, and one pleasure task every single day, even when your motivation is at absolute zero. Action precedes motivation. By systematically completing these tasks, you break the neurological loop of depressive withdrawal and force a cycle of positive psychological momentum. The friction here is immense. You have to consciously fight your brain's overwhelming desire to withdraw, using sheer willpower to initiate the first few minutes of the activity. Mastering your sleep pressure and forcing yourself into daily action are the final, most difficult behavioral steps required to completely max out your biological baseline. These 7 steps represent a mandatory biological foundation, but they are not a universal cure for every type of exhaustion. This decision tree shows step 8, recognizing the unfinished feeling. You have to evaluate your response to the protocol. Look at the split. Is your biological baseline optimized? If you have spent a month tracking your sleep, walking in the sun, and forcing your routines, you will land in one of 2 outcomes. If your fatigue is purely seasonal and you haven't done the work, you take the first branch. Sticking to the strict checklist of light and movement will consistently yield a return on your effort within 2 to 4 weeks. But if you take the second branch, you are a frustrated optimizer. You have done the work, you have optimized your sleep, and yet you are still suffering from internal self-doubt and repeating negative emotional patterns. This is the clinical reality of that second branch. You cannot outwalk a deeper psychological block. Biological tools are highly effective for physiology, but they cannot fix structural psychological wounds. When you hit this exact structural friction, the required pivot is the Deep Insight model at Edward Jenny and Associates. The Deep Insight model uses advanced psychological tools, like Rorschach assessments, to reach the insights that traditional talk therapy often misses. By revealing the hidden, subconscious patterns that drive your thoughts and behaviors, you can stop intellectualizing your problems. You replace constant self-blame with genuine clarity and peace. If you have done the biological work and you are ready to finally understand the source of your friction, visit inkblot.com to book a free Deep Insight consultation. Lasting vitality requires a clear transition. You move past treating surface biological symptoms and commit to resolving the deeper psychological sources of your friction.